Okay, so we're trying to make sense of one of the most difficult portions in the Torah, the Akedah. This is Parshat Vayera, and this is entitled Making Sense of the Incomprehensible, the Binding of Yitzchak. So I find that in certain circumstances, the Midrash is so refreshing because it seems to look at stories in the Torah in a new way and not encumbered by what we learned as a kid and what we think we knew and we think we understood. The Midrash just goes straight out for the jugular and tells it like it is. And it's really an example for me, very, very dramatic example of how the Torah cannot be understood without Torah Sheba'al Peh. In this case, Torah Sheba'al Peh, I mean the Midrash, because if you just looked at the story, you wouldn't even know that there were any doubts in Avram's mind, that he wasn't plagued with anything. He would hardly be human, because how could a human being take this kind of instruction from God to kill your own son and not think about how bizarre it is? I mean, we had the story of Stone just before. Doesn't this sound a little Stone-like? I mean, isn't there a law in the Torah, Yehareg Yavor, there are certain circumstances when the crime is so heinous that we are not allowed to commit it. If somebody says, I'm going to kill you, if you don't kill this person, or adultery or idolatry, you have to let yourself be killed. Here it is. He's asked to kill his own son who he watched miraculously birth, even though his wife was already past menopause. They were both very old. And the son that he was promised, from him all of the nation of Israel would come. It's so illogical. And yet, if you just read the story in the Chumash, it sounds like, okay, he did it, he took the test, he passed the test, amazing. But I believe, for me, the Midrash, I believe, is saying, no, he was plagued with doubts. And the Midrash, of course, does it in an interesting way. The Midrash talks about a conversation, what the Midrash calls Satan and Avram. Satan, who is disguised at first as an old man. Now, what does that mean? Satan, of course, in the Gemara, could mean your Yetzer Hara, could mean, your evil inclination. Could really mean what I believe the Midrash is perhaps saying is, it means what the conversation in your mind, what's going on, the doubts and the questions that you have. That's what the Midrash is exploring. And that way, the Midrash is humanizing the whole story and giving it a whole different dimension. So at first, this old man comes to Avram and says, hey, an old man like you finally had a child, you're going to kill this child? And the old man continues, and what do you think, you're going to get away with it? So these are all issues that perhaps Avram was grappling with. And then the Satan takes a form of a young person. He goes up to Yitzchak and he says, your mother so much wanted to have a child. She cried at night, every night, begging, pleading to have a child. And now you're going to let this old man kill you? And is that what you're going to do now? So, of course, this wasn't working. They didn't immediately, stop and go back home. But the next piece is even more interesting. This old man now says to Avram, you know what? I'm going to have to, be straight with you. I'm really not just a person. I'm actually an angelic figure, and I can see what's going up in heaven. And you know what? The truth is, you passed the test. It's all over. What's going to happen is, there's going to be a little animal caught in a thicket, and they're going to sacrifice this animal instead of Yitzchak. You don't have to sacrifice Yitzchak. So it's all over. You're done. Again, this could be perhaps what the Midrash is saying, that Avram is trying to figure, what could this be about? What is this nature of this test? It can't be that I'm going to sacrifice my son. Perhaps there is another kind of a sacrifice awaiting me. But Avram was able to still all these voices and hold his faith and keep going and see it out to the end. He never quit. And of course, a lot of people ask, well, why didn't he challenge God? After all, he challenged God in the case of Stone. And of course, I see that as very different. God sort of told Avram what I'm planning to do in Stone, knowing full well, of course, God knows everything, that Avram is going to push back and try to save, whether there are 50, 45, 30, 20 righteous people down to 10, so God knew that this was going to happen. But it wasn't a direct command. Here was a direct command. In fact, Rashi brings out from the Midrash that he had 3 days travel to get there, and the 3 days represented the time when he could ruminate and think about this, exactly what the Midrash is saying. It's not, he comes to you and says, you got to do this and do it right now, and there's no time to think about it. Avram had plenty of time to think about it. And that's really, I believe, where the Midrash is coming in to tell us what was going on during those 3 days, what thoughts came to his head. And at the end, of course, the Midrash says a very beautiful piece where Avram says, God, I have to, after it's all over, I have to level with you. You told me I'm going to have a son. You said the Jewish people are going to come from this son. You asked me to slaughter my own son. I just hope that, one day, if my children ever sin, that they'll be forgiven. And God says back to him, you opened up your heart to me, I'm going to open up my heart to you. And you should know that it's true. One day they will sin. And because of this extraordinary act that you did, they're going to blow the shofar Rosh Hashanah, and that's going to bring them forgiveness. It's going to, bring up this whole incident. So you see that they sort of they each come clean with each other, so to speak. And what I believe what the Midrash has done here is it hasn't detracted anything from Avraham Avinu's greatness, just the opposite. To me, it's humanized him. It's made him someone you could admire, be in awe of, love him. But the most important thing is it's someone you can relate to now. Have a great Shabbos.